everybody, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the opening of the Acushnet Sawmill. My name's Mark Rasmussen. Yeah, let's applaud that. My name's Mark Rasmussen. I'm president of the Buzzards Bay Coalition, and I cannot think of a day when I have been more proud to announce a project completion in this community. So thank you for being here to do it with us. We have so many partners, so many people who helped make this project come together. We have a number of speakers today. But leading off the program, before we do anything further, I want to recognize Congressman Bill Keating, who's such a wonderful supporter of all of our work on Buzzards Bay. Congressman, it was great to be here today. The federal government was a major partner in this project. So first off, before we do anything else, I'd like to introduce Congressman Bill Keating.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. First of all, I want to thank the Buzzards Bay Coalition and Mark for all the good work you do. I think it seems like every few months we're celebrating something else, but as you pull up to this, it's just remarkable, the transformation from an urban area blocks away, and all of a sudden you pull up and you see this magnificent work. I want to thank not only them, but the New Bedford Harbor Trust Council, which includes NOAA, includes Fisheries and Wildlife, and the Mass Energy and environmental folks. Terrific job coordinating federal and state and local work to make this a reality. The town of Acushnet, I want to thank and for their work, and I also want to thank the city of New Bedford. And if you've been in there looking at the work of the Old Colony Regional Voc young people that did the electrical work and some of the other work, what a great job they did, and what a remarkable learning center that's going to be as well. I know they're represented here too. I just want to, just walking around, I was here a little earlier, apologize, I'll leave a little late earlier too, but just to see what's here for people. Access disabled, walkways, a connection to the senior housing that you can see over there. And can you imagine the benefit that will be to take a walk, a beautiful walk, every day in these kind of surroundings, just minutes from your home. People that can kayak and canoe here, the hiking, the bird watching, everything that will be such a great resource and just steps away from the city. Just a remarkable location. I'll leave you with one thought that I was struck with as I walked around here, and I wrote down a couple of notes on that. It was the idea that looking back at the history of what was here, one of the major sawmills that were here, and how they took natural resources and transformed that into our economic growth going forward. And to think that we took that setting and that work, and we did the mirror image of that in some respects. We took the harmful effects of some of that economic growth that occurred through our industries, not those, but others right down the street, and the PCBs that were there as a result. Now we've transformed that and the revenues from that right back into producing natural resources. So it's an amazing roundabout transformation that occurred. So many volunteers, so many groups helped make this possible, and it just shows you when everyone works together like this, hand in glove in a seamless fashion, just what extraordinary work you could do. So congratulations to all of you. I want Mark to accept this recognition from Congress. I hope we have many more of these. You know, I live on Buzzards Bay myself, so these things are very important to me, and I appreciate them as all of us do here. It's a congressional recognition. Once again, I hope you can paper a whole room full of buildings with this to the Buzzards Bay Coalition in recognition of completion of the Acushnet Sawmill Restoration Project. Congratulations, and thank all of you. So many of you that are here made this possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for doing this. Wow. That's amazing. Thank you very much, Congressman. I want to tell a little bit of a story before we go much further, and try to tell you about how this project fits into what I think is happening on the river. Because this is a story of this property that goes back about 15 years, but the story of what's happening on the Acushnet is actually much longer. So I really want to start the day by saying welcome back to the Acushnet River. This river's been here for a long while, but as a community, we lost it for a while. A long while, for decades. We turned our back on it. We lined its banks from Pope's Island to this spot with mills and factories, landfills and junkyards. We destroyed its shoreline, erased its wetlands. We turned our homes and neighborhoods away from it. We didn't even want to look at this river. We erected fences along its banks to keep the public away from it, and we dumped an astounding amount of pollution into it. Raw sewage, toxic PCBs, which still plague it to this day. Some would argue, and some still do, that we actually killed this river in the 20th century. That by 1980, 100 years of abuse had rendered the Acushnet devoid of life and poisonous to all of us who lived here. But then slowly, in the 1990s, we as a community started the long process of bringing back the Acushnet River. There was no decision, there was no moment that it happened, no coordinated effort. I don't think any of you remember an event like this one, but all of a sudden we started treating the river differently. It happened with landmark victories like the modernization of the New Bedford sewage treatment plant by then Mayor John Bullard, now NOAA chief and here with us today. The US EPA began the frustratingly slow and ongoing process of cleaning up the toxic PCBs lining the river bottom. One day, those of you who remember, one day the Pierce Mill burned down, and instead of building something else, we built a park. And we opened up a view to the river on Belleville Avenue that had never existed there for 100 years. Rowing clubs started springing up on the harbor because water quality was improving. The list goes on and on. Think about it. Something transformational has happened since the 1990s about how we look at this river. The people of this area started turning their eyes back towards the Acushnet, and we began to see opportunity instead of blight. Then one day, in 1999, the last professional forester employed by the Acushnet Sawmills Company, Mike Labossiere, who's right up here in front today, he put the Buzzards Bay Coalition and the Hawes family, who had owned this lumber company since the 1860s, together to talk about the future of this property, the historic center of their operations. It used to be said that you could walk from Fall River to Plymouth and never leave Acushnet Sawmill Company lands. From Freetown to Rochester, into Carver, into Plymouth, their forestry company had generated generations of jobs and healthy watershed forests throughout this region. But by 1999, those operations were ending, and the family began transferring thousands of those acres into conservation agencies for permanent protection, a wonderful legacy for this logging company. But this 19-acre lumberyard was a particular challenge, and the family was open to ideas. So from our perspective at Buzzards Bay Coalition, we knew this was an opportunity not to be missed. Ecologically, this spot is one of the most important on the entire river system. Here at the head of tide, where the freshwater Acushnet meets with the saltwater New Bedford Harbor, produces wonderful biodiversity. And I hope you'll all come here next spring and fall and watch as juvenile striped bass and menhaden come right out of the bay, right up to this spot. And you'll get a sense for how important this spot is in the local ecosystem. But the property was suffering from 300 years of wear. Buildings had literally been built on top of the river. Its banks had been walled in concrete and channeled. Streams on the property had been buried in pipes, and a huge raw sewage discharge remained. Overall, about 4 acres of asphalt built right on top of this most important part of this river system. And there was a big dam, I mean a big dam, that blocked this river right over here at a critical juncture, preventing the river's herring and other species from getting up to their spawning ponds in Freetown. So we started a 15-year discussion in partnership with the Hawes family, with this community and with government agencies about how we might undo all of this damage and bring us to this day today, to this celebration. So I have a lot of thank yous to list in a second, but before I go any further in this, I want to pause here, thank this guy, Mike Labossiere, who got it all started, and the Hawes, well, oh yeah. And the Mary Ellen Hawes Lees, Peter Hawes, and Cynthia Ritter, members of the Hawes family. They're over here. Peter and Mary Ellen's here. Cynthia's over here. For their outstanding support and commitment to seeing all this through. It's a wonderful legacy for the family. So what actually happened here? Let me tell you what happened on this site. What are we actually celebrating today? Step one was to purchase the property. So going back in this 15-year journey, step one was to purchase the property and to remove this dam, which we accomplished both in 2007 with critical funding from the New Bedford Harbor Trustee Council and the leadership particularly of NOAA, who headed up the dam removal. Mayor Mitchell. That year, the Acushnet, so think about this dam removal, that year the Acushnet River became the first Buzzards Bay River to flow freely from its headwaters all the way to the bay. No dams, no failing fish ladders, just free-flowing water and fish. The results have been amazing. So far, we've documented 10 times return of river herring to this river just in the first few years of this dam being open. Dam removals like this are absolutely critical to restoring our local fish populations, and this site, I hope, serves as a model for so many other places in the region where dams are ruining rivers. But with the dam dealt with, then came planning, design, and demolition. Between 2008 and 2012, each year we took down a few more buildings. There were a lot of buildings here, and we did it as we could afford it. We cut back invasive vines and trees, we exposed more old pavement, and support started growing. Wonderful support from the town of Acushnet and the city of New Bedford for what we had begun here. So in 2013, you'll all remember, you've been driving by this site, the big equipment finally arrived and full-scale landscape restoration began. Managing this burst of activity were the coalition staff team of Brendan Annette, our Vice President of Watershed Protection, and Sarah DeSilva Quintal, our restoration ecologist, who brought the talent, commitment, and hard work needed to get this done. This project in particular has been Sarah's baby, and she has nurtured it into the landscape you all see here today. Sarah grew up just a few streets north of this property, and I know that this project has been a labor of love for her. So Sarah and Brendan, right up there in the back together, we are all extremely grateful to you for the gift you've given us all today. So these two led a crew over the last 2 years. We removed 4 acres of pavement. We tore down the walls channeling the river. We rebuilt the natural river sloping banks. We literally recreated the channel of the river you see behind you. That was altered 300 years ago, and we put it back to how it had been before. Unburied a stream, added back a red maple swamp which had been destroyed, moved the last usable building of on the site to become our learning center, and planted thousands and thousands of trees and plants. So this, everything that you're all seeing today, is the result. Along the way, we had so much support, so much wonderful support. I'm certain this is one of those opportunities where I fear I'm going to miss somebody, but I have to say a few thank yous, so please bear with me. So first off, to our funders. All in, between land acquisition and environmental restoration, the New Bedford Harbor Trustee Council invested $3.6 million of cleanup funds to make the Sawmill project a reality. That's roughly 1/10 of the money collected in restoration fines from the harbor's PCB polluters, and I cannot imagine a more appropriate use of the funds for restoration of that pot. And you had to be able to, I want to say this about the Trustee Council, to look at this site and look what we were talking about doing in 2000, you had to be able to see it. And the Trustee Council could see it, and they saw it through, and they invested in it, and we're very thankful to them for that. The Trustee Council itself is comprised of 2 federal and 1 state agency, and we had wonderful supportive staff at all the agencies. So I particularly want to recognize, and I won't see you all in the crowd here, at NOAA, Steve Block, Jim Turek, and John Katina. At the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Molly Sperduto and David Sternberg. And with the Massachusetts Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, Karen Pelto and Lisa Alexander. So I want to give a round of applause to those staff folks. In addition to the Trustee Council, we also had a lot of other state agencies providing technical assistance and advice, particularly the Massachusetts Department of Marine Fisheries, the Massachusetts Division of Ecological Restoration, and the Buzzards Bay National Estuary Program. So with the funding support for the land and restoration work in place, we still needed help with the public access and educational components on the site. The handicap accessible trails, the signage, the learning center building itself that you're all seeing today. Between the generosity of the Hawes family and the Massachusetts Department of Conservation and Recreation's Trail Grant Program, they donated an additional $100,000 to make sure the property wasn't just restored for the environment, but also was specifically designed to engage people in learning and enjoying the river. So again, thank you to Cynthia, Mary Ellen, and Peter of the Hawes family for the consistent, loyal, generous support. Through their support, the history of the sawmill, the history of the Hawes family lives on at this property. I'm extremely thankful about that. Sure, why not again? So that's where the money came from, but even so much more than that was needed to complete the sawmill restoration. We have had such as outstanding support from both the city of New Bedford and the town of Acushnet. And I'm not talking about just moral support. I mean trucks and work crews, lots of trucks and work crews. The City of New Bedford Department of Public Infrastructure, under the leadership of Ron LaBelle and Zeb Aruda, were an enormous help with demolition, tree clearing, utility installations, recycling our construction debris. Whenever we needed their help, they were there. These two and everybody at DPI, such amazing public servants who put a lot of heart into this project. Likewise, in the town of Acushnet, Conservation Agent Marilee Kelly, Building Inspector Jim Merritt, Fire Chief Kevin Gallagher, who creatively helped us try to grow some grass here on this property with the fire trucks, all the way up to the Selectman's office and the town administrator, Alan Catino. We feel very welcome as Acushnet's newest residents. And then there was this little building project. We are deeply indebted to the faculty and students of Old Colony Regional, Greater New Bedford Vocational Technical High School for all of the building design, carpentry, and electrical work. What you guys see in there is all student work. Over 3 different school years, 100 students got hands-on experience renovating and adding on to this original post and beam structure. The last, like I said, the last remaining building of the Acushnet Sawmill Company. Many thanks to their instructors who guided this project: Stu Norton, Bob Whitlow, Al Amaral, Rob Gomes, and Scott Tebow. Also here with them today are Superintendent Jim O'Brien and Principal Bob Watt. I think you'll all agree they did an amazing job to represent us. All right, I'm almost there. I'm almost through these thank yous. I want to recognize the construction crew, engineering and landscape design, the Lewis Berger Group, EA Engineering, Science and Technology, and the Bioengineering Group. Sumco Eco Contracting, who physically reshaped this landscape to create what you're seeing today. Avant Gardens of Dartmouth. Chris Tracy is the artist who designed and built this beautiful, amazing stone wall out front. And Joe Fernandes Construction from just around the corner here in Acushnet for dozens of jobs over the past decade. Joe has really become our go-to contractor for big jobs around here. And I haven't seen Joe here yet, but I hope he's here. Along the way, other local businesses contributed goods and services. I want to recognize artist John Magnan, who built the furniture you'll see inside the Learning Center. Dave McIntyre and Mahoney's Building Supply in Mattapoisett. Fairhaven Lumber Company, Gurney Sawmill in Freetown, Bay State Window and Door, D&L Services, Brown Construction, Roseland Nursery and the Garden Club of Buzzards Bay, who donated shrubs, and Colonial Seed Company for free seed and consulting. An amazing list of vendors helping out here. And lastly, to the staff of the Buzzards Bay Coalition, so many other hands went into this victory today, and I want to recognize a few. Thank you to Rob Hancock and Alicia Pimentel for the educational signage and the exhibits you'll see all around the site. And to Matt Spinner, our Land Stewardship Director, who installed all those signs and now gets to take care of this property from here forward. So thank you to all the staff. So the river has received this wonderful new lease on life. And now it's time for all of you. It's time for all of us. It's time for people. We designed the sawmill to become an open portal for everyone to reconnect with the Acushnet River. As I said, handicap accessible paths, river overlooks, interpretive signage, a canoe and kayak launch, forested trails. We want families gathered here to enjoy the wildflower fields. We want kids catching fish here. We want everybody to launch kayaks and explore upstream up the river. We want this property to become a crown at the top of the city's planned Riverwalk up the side of the estuary, and we want it to link back down along the Acushnet side of the estuary in a chain of protected and restored public lands. Much of this is already happening, is already underway. That's our vision. That's what we feel we've started here at the Sawmill, and we look forward to many more celebrations like this one as we turn that vision into reality in the years ahead. So, thank you again for all being here today and for helping us open this new chapter in the life of this property, this river, and I believe this community. So with that, I'd like to let you hear from a lot of these great partners we have behind us. We could not have done this without support at all levels of government across the board. And so with that, I'd like to start with hearing from our State Senator Mark Montigny, who is always such a wonderful champion on projects just like this. Mark.
I should stop right there and I would disappoint no one, particularly those behind the podium. Before I begin a very long policy speech, I do want to say one thing. I won't, I promise. I do want to say one thing. Can you feel our pain? I know you're thinking, what a perfect day. Imagine if you're John Bullard, Tony Cabral, and me. No one has empathy for middle-aged men with too much hair. But it is a very bad hair day for at least 3 of us. I should just sit down, shouldn't I? Let me say, thanks. Mark ended off by thanking the staff at the Buzzards Bay Coalition. Let me begin by recognizing Mark and his staff and board and volunteers with a rousing applause for their work, not only here, but literally making the South Coast a better place for everyone. And that's saying it lightly and under-exaggerating it. I also want to thank our hosts. I would say Dave Wona, the selectman, but really I want to reference his twin boys. Are they 6 yet? Yeah. What day was that?
July 9th.
6-year-old. They used to be my youngest, strongest supporters until I shocked my whole family and now have a 1-year-old child. So you guys got beat. I now have a younger supporter, but they'll call you uncle, don't worry. It's a great day. I think Mark covered well the players and said thank you appropriately. Hopefully no one was left off. He covered the parameters of this amazing project. I can't believe, I'm not surprised by much, particularly because I've seen such transformation of the South Coast and participated in it with many of the players on both sides of the podium. But this one is surprising. I can remember one of my closest childhood friends or high school friends, Robbie Gomes, who was here. Rob, can you give us a wave? I know he was mentioned. Rob, yeah, as usual, hiding in the back row, but never, ever at a loss when it comes to the work of getting things done. He leads our students at New Bedford Vocational, and he was the first, many, many, many years ago, to say to me, what great stewards the... Yeah, let's give Robbie a round of... and the students a round of applause. He was the first so many years ago to say to me, what great stewards the Hawes family were to the land. And then over the years, I got to know the family well. And I remember very well, and I forget whether it was one of the Hawes by blood or by marriage, because I know them all. But I remember them saying very humbly how truly for generations they are just custodians of the land. That was a humble way of saying it because they owned more land, I think at the time, than any other landowner in the state. And what a way to carry on a legacy prospectively for generations to come. So a big round of applause for all my friends in the Hawes family. I want to conclude by saying one thing. I promised a long policy speech. I won't do it, but I will say one thing as a matter of policy. How exciting it is to work with the partners behind the podium and in the audience to literally transform this beautiful region, in a sense, back to the future. I mean, it really is one of the most beautiful places in the United States. As Bill Keating mentioned, ironically, some of the tremendous economic growth of past generations has cost dearly the more recent past and the present, but we are determined through restoration of this environment to make sure that the generations to come enjoy this fabulous place. And you do it in a sense by invoking environmental justice, a funny term, and there are many activists here that use the term, and I think at times it is even mocked, unfortunately, when I think it's not only a relevant term, but an urgent term. Environmental justice is simple, very simple. There have been certain places on Earth that have been degraded by some, and by going after them, sometimes criminally, sometimes civilly, there are ways to restore and fix the damage they've done. I'm never satisfied, by the way, when the federal government has been the negotiator on the other side, and I don't mean in this region, I mean watching some of the deals in Boston and in Washington. I always feel more could be done, that those that degrade in the first degree could be criminally charged, and at a minimum, the corporate violators could be appropriately charged and fined, and often they are not. I won't bore you today with the critique of many of the judgments and the consideration that's been paid over the last 10 or 20 or 30 years to reverse this, but I'll say one thing. This is an example when you go after those that ruin things, that the last chapter is not written by them, it's written by those who are determined to restore. And this has got to be one of the most exciting, if in fact environmental justice means everyone has access. Everyone has access to that restoration. That's what's happening in New Bedford. and in Acushnet and Fairhaven and Dartmouth and Mattapoisett. I picked those 5 not coincidentally. I represent all 5. But particularly, it's happening here on the Acushnet Sawmills property, and I'm proud to be a small part of that, and particularly proud to join Mark Rasmussen and his staff, who have done such great work, not only here, but in the greater Bay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Working with other organizations who do this work in other parts of the state and other parts of the country, I have to remind myself how blessed we are to have a legislative delegation who cares so much about these issues and works so strongly with us. So thank you, Mark. Here at the very beginning of this project, the representative who represents Acushnet, this whole part of the river for so long has been such a wonderful supporter, all the way from Coggeshall Street to Freetown. Our state representative Robert Kazera here from Acushnet, so I'd like to call up Bob for next remarks.
The saying is that you arrive late, you have to wait to the end of the program to speak. I apologize for getting here late, and I'm thankful having the opportunity to speak second. Good afternoon. I know. Good afternoon. It seems like only a short time ago that many of us were gathered here to launch the start of a very ambitious project. And I know it's been several years, but it's certainly great to be here and open up what is the completion, at least of the Acushnet Sawmill section of the project. This is not only a great undertaking that we were able to accomplish in part because of the contamination that befall the port of New Bedford in the waters in our harbor. But it's nice to see that through that catastrophe of sorts, we are going to bequeath to future generations a wonderful legacy for recreational activities that run the gamut. Proud to be here and thankful to all the individuals who contributed to this project. It's interesting to note, as I was listening to the Senator talk about different people that he knows associated with the project, I'm fortunate to know someone who was very active on this site, Sarah Da Silva Quintal, who was a good friend of my oldest daughter at St. Joseph's School here in New Bedford and then at New Bedford High School, and who flourished in the Sea Lab program. When I see Simone Bourgeois, my daughter had given up on the trophy drive and gave many of the trophies, or tried to Sarah. Sarah went on to school. She went on to school for marine biology or something related in that area and went to work in Connecticut and Long Island. And she came home a few years ago, and Mark and his crew designated her as one of the project people on this project. And I think that that's telling too. It's nice to know that the young people that started in New Bedford school system, that got a big start with the Sea Lab program, continued in the sciences and in the environment, and has contributed greatly to this project. So I give a shout out to Sarah and to all her co-workers at the Buzzards Bay Coalition that are responsible for the success of this project. And I'll say no more. Thank you.
Thank you. Right downriver, and again, this project is about building the sense of understanding about the Acushnet River as a whole system. The support for this kind of work continues, and we're very happy here to have Senator Antonio Cabral, who represents the lower part of the harbor in this district.
Quick correction, Senator Montega says you don't think about it. But Mark, thank you for the promotion. Anyway, well, good afternoon. This is wonderful. If I can describe this project in one word, is transformative. This is what we call transformative projects. Not only in the environment side, but really this will become a transformative project, economically speaking. So I'm going to call it a transformative economic development project, not only for Acushnet, New Bedford, but for its entire region. The transformation that starts here, it's just going to carry on to the other end of the harbor. And we have to thank all of you, beginning with the coalition, Mark and his leadership. You know, we were talking before the program, and we were here to announce this project in 2007. Time flies, doesn't it? But it's well worth the wait, because this is really transformative and this is wonderful. But this can only happen with the support of so many people that Mark mentioned, and so many people on this side, on the opposite side of the podium. I think all of you probably should be on the speaking program as well, if not all of you, most of you, because of your involvement, your tenacity of, in some cases, keeping some of us, or some of our feet to the fire to make sure that things happen, and happen in a good way, to make sure things like this can be transformed. So we want to thank Mark and the coalition again, and all its staff, all of you in the audience that had a tremendous role in playing to make sure this was going to happen. And this is, I can't even believe, I mean, I was here in 2007 when we announced, and as Mark had mentioned, this is completely a different place. Just imagine how beautiful this was. Now you know how beautiful it was before all the other previous centuries or decades of other types of economic development, such as the Acushnet sawmill. We want to thank the family, really. They've been tremendous as well in working, making sure this is turned back to all of us, to the public. This is really the ability to turn this harbor and this river. And when I say harbor, I'm saying the coalition has done a tremendous job of making sure that the harbor and the water and the shore of the harbor along all this region is returned to the people of this region. Create the public access so all of us can enjoy, and all our kids and our future, and the future generations to come. So this is really tremendous. So I'm just thankful that I was a small part of it. So thank you to all of you.
We're also thankful, with Congressman Keating speaking earlier on, I missed one other very important federal partner here. U.S. Senator Elizabeth Warren is always supportive when we call, always asking what she can do to help. And we're happy here today to have Stephanie Houghton from her office to speak as well. So Stephanie.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Stephanie Houghton. I'm the Southeast Regional Director for Senator Warren's office. So I'll start with saying I'm just very glad to be here today on behalf of Senator Warren to help celebrate the opening of the sawmill and the completion of this extraordinary restoration effort. This project has turned the site into a very special place for South Coast families and for our entire Commonwealth. This truly was a community effort. We wouldn't be here today without the hard work and commitment of the entire community. The Hawes family and the funding provided by the New Bedford Harbor Trustee Council played a key role in getting this project off the ground. And the Buzzards Bay Coalition, the town of Acushnet, and the city of New Bedford all deserve credit for making it a success. Senator Warren often talks about the responsibility we have to the next generation to protect our natural treasures and the many places of beauty here in Massachusetts. The cleanup of the Acushnet River is a terrific example of this. This park will help preserve our environment, improve the public health, and be a place that kids and families can enjoy for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. So now it's always a pleasure at these events. We had the pleasure of being able to do this a few months ago. We opened the Nantucket Bay Trail in Fairhaven. To have John Bullard, who now serves as Regional Administrator for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. As many of you know, John served as mayor in the city of New Bedford, did a lot of important work to get the harbor cleanup going. And it's always great to welcome John back to New Bedford. So John.
David, it's good to be in Acushnet. And Mark, thank you very much for an invitation to come home and to be involved in a ceremony that I relate to wearing a number of hats. Of course, I'm here wearing a NOAA hat, and unfairly, because the work is done not by me. I'm just up here trying to string some words together, but the credit goes to Steve Block, who's over here, and Jim Turek, who's over here. There he is. And John Katina, who probably is up in Gloucester. And they deserve the credit. So thank you, Steve and Jim, very much for the assistance you've provided. As Mark said, the Harbor Trustee Council, which we are one partner of with Fish and Wildlife and the state, administers money, in this case $3.5 million, that is Aerovox and Cornell Dubilier's contribution to paying for the pollution that they have visited on the Acushnet River. And so this is one of 37 projects and counting as a result of that. And let me tell you that NOAA is very, very proud of this project. I'm also, as Mark said, I can't help but relate to this as a former mayor, and I congratulate Jon Mitchell for his deserved re-election. I had, when I served in the late 1900s, in that position, some involvement in the health of the Acushnet River at the other end, and the health of this river is very important to me. And I've also been involved as a citizen, like many of you, with the Coalition for Buzzards Bay, now the Buzzards Bay Coalition, as anything from a volunteer water quality tester. I always am looking over my shoulder for Tony Williams. I tested water quality at Kyler Seafood just down the river a little bit, to a swimmer, swim for the bay 5 times. So believe me, I've drunk enough of the Acushnet River. I know it's clean. Gee. As far as I know. So this is this event is very personal to me on many levels, and I congratulate all involved that Mark has singled out. But that's not going to stop me from perhaps repeating some of the thank yous, and I want to begin with the Hawes family because for generations through their stewardship, they have allowed us to get to this point. And so thank you very much for your stewardship through the generations and allowing us to put together the resources to make this incredible project possible. And I want to say, Mark mentioned that a few months ago we were at the Normandy project, and I think about the Hawes family, but I think about how other families, the Forbes family, the Lloyd family, the Makepeace family, the Normandys, how our region that the coalition serves has benefited from the ethics of stewardship of families like the Hawes family, and how we all have benefited from that. So thank you very much to the Hawes family. I also want to say, as we think about heritage, I want to just single out a person who was one of the founders of the coalition, George Hampson, because he died yesterday. And George was an incredible scientist from Woods Hole. He loved the coalition. He was out a week ago with some of the coalition's folks teaching us how to continue the sampling just off of Fort Tabor. You know, if it weren't for George and a couple of other people, there'd be no coalition. We wouldn't be here today. He was a wonderful man. Keep George in our hearts. When I took on this job at NOAA Fisheries of writing unfair fishery regulations, as Senator Montigny describes my work. Now. You didn't think I'd let that pass, did you? Someone asked me, how do you like your job? And I said, it'd be a lot easier if someone told me how to make fish. And let me tell you, right here is where we make fish. Before this project, only 350 river herring were able to migrate upstream. And river herring are a very important species. And in 2014, that number, 350, had turned into 10,000. That's what happens. That's what a project like this does. And I don't think it's going to stop at 10,000. So this is this kind of work produces real results, explosive results, and so for a species like river herring, that's very, very important, and so you're seeing work that in where there's so much bad news all the time on the fisheries front, you're going to see growth in this population that's needed, important, and productive. I think the last thing I'd say before one final thank you is that our other federal partner that hasn't been mentioned yet is EPA, and they're hard at work while this work is going on, cleaning up the harbor, removing PCBs, and all the habitat work that takes place along the river's edge goes for naught if we don't remove the PCBs from the harbor. And this is one of the most difficult sites in the world when you have PCBs underwater in silt. It doesn't get more complicated than that. And so their work dredging, removing PCBs is challenging at best and certainly expensive. And the money they extracted from Cornell Dubilier and Aerovax ran out long ago, so you and I are paying for it. And the negotiations, the mayor and others, to get that done as quickly and as best are not easy. But that work is significant. The report in the paper today, I think, very encouraging about improving health of the harbor in that regard. And so I think I'm encouraged by that because it means that the habitat restoration here and in other places along the harbor's edge is going to be benefited by the health of the bottom of the harbor. So that's an integral part of the health of New Bedford Harbor. The Clean Water Act says fishable and swimmable. And I felt from the beginning, it's one of the reasons in my first inaugural speech that I said the environment should be a priority for New Bedford. It's what Senator Montigny alluded to in environmental justice, is environmental health isn't just for the suburbs, it's for New Bedford too. And this site is, within a short walk to some of the densest neighborhoods in New Bedford. And a clean environment is important for everyone. That means everyone. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, John. Our next partner on the state side, so remember this is a very big partnership, and so a lot of federal dollars, but just as much support from the state. And so we're very happy today to have Assistant Secretary for Energy and Environmental Affairs under Governor Baker, Daniel Seeger.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you for being here on what the senator called a bad hair day. Not really sure what he was talking about, but that's okay. Happy to be here to represent Secretary Beaton, who's the Commonwealth's Natural Resource Trustee, and join you all in the official reopening of the Acushnet Sawmill. Congratulations to the Buzzards Bay Coalition and all the partners who worked on this project, the town of Acushnet, the city of New Bedford, and the Massachusetts state agencies that helped along the way. At this site, the Buzzards Bay Coalition and their partners have transformed acres of buildings and pavement into wetlands, streams, and parkland filled with native plants. The education center, the pathways, the overlooks, and the canoe and the kayak launch invite the public to explore resources previously off limits and inaccessible. A truly comprehensive restoration that breathes new life into this reach of the river. Over 4 rounds of funding, the New Bedford Trustee Council, where the trustee is represented by Mass DEP, has approved projects that have protected restored habitats for fish and wildlife along the entire length of the Acushnet River, with over 350 acres in total habitat protected along the river, and over 10,000 river herring passing through the 3 improved fish passages. These benefits to ecosystems and to public extend to the harbor and to beyond. At the Acushnet Sawmill, the Trustee Council provided $1.2 million worth of restoration to wetland and stream habitat. Through Mass Department of Conservation and Recreation, a trails grant was provided for $50,000 matching grant to support the trails, boardwalk, interpretive signage, canoe, and kayak launch. Our Division of Marine Fisheries has been monitoring the return of the herring to the Acushnet River following these improvements to the fish passage in 2002 and 2007, and the 4-year of post-construction results represent, as John Bullard has said, over an 1,100% over baseline return to the herring habitat, which is absolutely amazing. I want to just take a second to recognize some of the staff from our team at the state who contributed to all these achievements. From DEP, Lisa Alexander, Andy Cohen, Tim Cahill, Karen Pelto, and Paul Locke. From Division of Marine Fisheries, John Shepard, and from Department of Conservation and Recreation, Paul Janigy and Amanda Lewis. It's great to be here with everybody today to see a project that really emphasizes the amazing work that can occur when you put partners like this all together, and thank you again.
Okay, we're gonna close with the city of New Bedford and the town of Acushnet, and I think that's really appropriate way to finish because we are a community-based organization. This is community work. This is the community we live in, and we are very, very fortunate to always have an open door, an open hand for help, both from Mayor Mitchell's office and from the town of Acushnet. So it's my first chance seeing him. Congratulations, Mayor Mitchell, on your re-election. So we'd like to welcome up Mayor Jon Mitchell of New Bedford.
All right, it's getting a little chilly today, so I'll be brief. It's come upon us as a little bit of a surprise. I was walking around down the south end today commenting that it just seems like November has become the new October, and it's been that warm this week, and I guess it's catching up with us. So a quick set of thank yous and a couple of comments. So let me echo the thanks to the Hawes family. I think I saw Peter here somewhere. Where's Peter? There he is. There he is. Not enough thanks to Peter and the Hawes family. If you're not familiar with the history of the site, it is pretty amazing. You know, you may not believe this, but I am old enough, and certainly the people who preceded me at the podium are certainly old enough to remember coming out to Acushnet Sawmill. I remember my father had a number of occasions of doing home repairs and had to get some boards out here, and I remember coming out here and seeing a very different sight, as I'm sure many of you can remember, and it has been quite a transformation. I want to thank the folks who helped transform the site, and that includes the Department of Public Infrastructure, Ron LaBelle and Zeb Aruda, who head the department, did a real terrific job, spending months clearing the land, getting out all the junk that's been around, accumulating for 300 years, literally, and preparing it for what you see here today. So I just, if you wouldn't mind joining me in a round of applause for all the hard work of folks in city government. And I want to thank the trustees who've been involved in many ways in the city, certainly for this project, the Riverwalk project as well, which is still proceeding apace. Thank you for your continued support and working collaboratively with the city on both projects. So I was approached, I can't remember when, it had to have been a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, was asked, well, whether we would be willing to devote city crews to this project. The Department of Public Infrastructure is a large municipal agency. We in New Bedford are blessed to have really what in effect is a full-scale construction firm that's under our tent. That does everything from snow clearance to a lot of the masonry that you see in the downtown to all the stuff you don't see underground, the wastewater and water systems and all that stuff. They do quite a job. And so I was asked, well, whether it would be okay if we use them over here in Acushnet. And my first response was, I don't think anybody's going to notice. We're just right there, right? There's New Bedford, just on the other side of the road. But there are many reasons why we wanted to get involved in this project. We do take seriously our role, New Bedford's role as the urban core of Greater New Bedford. We assist the surrounding towns when we can, when appropriate, because we're all part of the same metropolitan area. Verizon Fall is one, and it's always been great to work with Dave Wonar on a number of different projects. He's been so effective in his time as selectman, more than happy to help out. So there's that. And then, working with the coalition, let me just say, my first reaction was the coalition always does it right. They always have, coalition always has these very long speaking programs, for one thing, but when they do things, it's always first rate. And it's always done in a very collaborative effort. Lots of people had a role in this, right? Whether it was businesses that donated goods or services, or volunteers who added time or talent or treasure, or governmental partners or foundations that lend money or other resources. The coalition brings everybody in, and the end result, especially under Mark's leadership, has been a great product. This place speaks for itself. Take a look at the overhead shot and the flyer that's been passed out. Walk the grounds, you'll see this place was done just right, and so we're more than happy to help help you guys. You've done so much for Greater New Bedford over the years, and the entire Buzzards Bay watershed. We go back to my days as an assistant U.S. attorney in the Buzzards Bay oil spill and all the work that was done around that, turning what was a tragedy into a real positive for the area. But the coalition and all of those of you who are here who supported it are really making a difference. The other thing I would say is this is the primary reason why we got involved. This is a big thing for New Bedford. It's a great thing for Greater New Bedford. It's a big thing for New Bedford, and it really does do what other speakers have referred to, and that is it's part of our overall effort to bring people back to the water. Our approach in New Bedford has been about leveraging our assets, and the primary asset that this area has is its connection to the water. And that's why we work so hard in developing the port. That's why we do things like the Harbor Walk down in the South End. And that's why we're working hard on the Riverwalk now, which, you know, if some of you, I suspect, went to the public hearing last month in which some of the more recent designs were released. It's again, a first-rate design. What we're trying to do is to give to residents of the region, all of Greater New Bedford, New Bedford at its core, an opportunity to enjoy great public spaces, the kind of public spaces that far more affluent areas have taken for granted. We can do this. Our standards ought to be as high, and frankly, they are higher than other places, because I strongly believe, and I know that the folks up here also believe, that our residents are entitled to the best. And that's what we're trying to deliver, but it can't be done without a broad collaboration, without all of you, without the folks behind us. And so that's what we're making happen. So we see a future where, in the not too distant future, in which folks can walk from their neighborhoods to go go from, you know, hot urban neighborhoods in the middle of August to bucolic scenery on the Acushnet River, and walk the 2 miles all the way up here into woodland, do it on a kayak, do it by foot, do it on a bicycle, however you transport yourself. This is something that for generations to come will say, folks will say, you know what, they had the right idea back then, and that is something that we can all be proud of today. Thank you very much.
Now, we are about 20 feet into Acushnet, but John's right. We never once had a city crew say, we can't help you with that, that's in Acushnet. It was really an amazing level of support we had from the city under John's leadership. So we want to close with the town of Acushnet, but before I do, I want to invite one other person who's been referred to a couple times up to the podium. Next week, after you all clear out and people start exploring this site, something really exciting is going to happen. Is the group of students from the elementary school right up the street at Jaira Swift School are going to walk down the street into this property and start learning about the Acushnet River for the first time. And helping lead those programs for so many years, Simone Bourgeois, who runs the Sea Lab program for New Bedford Public Schools, Simone's going to help make that happen and coordinate that effort with the school system to make this property theirs. So I want to actually ask Simone to say a few words.
Good afternoon. I'm the facilitator of Sea Lab, New Bedford Public Schools. Whoops, and I've just broken the microphone, but I'll give it back. It gives me great pleasure to congratulate the Buzzards Bay Coalition for spearheading the restoration and protection of the Acushnet River's aquatic environment, identified by the Wampanoag Kushnia as the peaceful resting place near water. We at New Bedford Public Schools thank the Coalition for protecting our children's legacy and giving future generations a place to learn about the Acushnet River's biome at the Sawmill. The Coalition's restoration of the Acushnet Sawmill's property ensures the long-term care and stewardship of an additional Buzzards Bay ecosystem. We are grateful to the Buzzards Bay Coalition for its vigilant and consistent stewardship of the Buzzards Bay watershed. The development of the waters of the Sawmill River Trail will bring the wonder of woods, wetlands, and the natural areas of an aquatic environment for children of all ages to enjoy and to observe and to learn about a habitat of healthy plants and animals indigenous to this unique environment. On a personal note, I come from the north end of New Bedford, and I grew up several blocks from the Acushnet Sawmill site. I spent many hours with my father, walking its trails and fishing its waters. And as a member of Mrs. Saltus's Girl Scout troop, whose husband was a sawmill employee, I learned to identify indigenous trees, aquatic plants, and animals that called the Acushnet River its home. Unfortunately, for the past 50 years, I've also watched this beautiful area deteriorate into a dumping ground in an unhealthy environment. So it is with great enthusiasm that my grandson, Thomas, who is 8, and I have watched this 2-year restoration period of the sawmill's 19 acres, and I know it will be a favorite place for Thomas and I to explore. It is my belief that the transformation of the sawmill will spur public interest and sustain the public's connection to and the protection of their local environment. The collaborative relationship between the Buzzards Bay Coalition and CLAB, New Bedford Public Schools, began several years ago. During this time, under the direction of Robert Hancock, the Vice President of Community Engagement, Buzzards Bay educators have visited CLAB on a weekly basis to introduce and instruct all of New Bedford Public Schools grade 4 students to the exciting world of the marine environment. Thousands of New Bedford Public Schools students have taken beach walks on the East Beach, led by the Coalition personnel, and have been exposed to North Atlantic marine flora and fauna. Regardless of the weather, and I can attest to that because this morning we had students out on the beach with Buzzards Bay Coalition educators learning about univalves and bivalves. The teachers, their children, and the students have experienced this hands-on adventure and have become familiar with the magic of Buzzards Bay through the Coalition's appreciation and cooperation. As an educator since 1968, or as my husband likes to remind me, as an educator through the last 6 decades, it thrills me to realize that New Bedford Public School students, Acushnet students, Fairhaven students, and Dartmouth students will now have the opportunity to not only investigate the marine environment, but to learn about the aquatic environment through the Buzzards Bay Coalition Community Engagement and Education Department. Our public school students will begin their Sawmill Experience adventure in 2 weeks, thanks to the Buzzards Bay Coalition. Not only will New Bedford Public School students explore Buzzards Bay, but they will also have the opportunity to explore an aquatic environment at the sawmill. We are so fortunate to live in an area where our natural resources are advocated for and protected by the Buzzards Bay Coalition. Once again, I say thank you to the Coalition for their ongoing environmental focus and their ability to take an imprint of the past and form a pathway for our future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Simone. All right, so these last 2 speakers are going to bring it right here to this site. First off, we'll finish with Dave Warner. I think we started here 15 years ago with Dave Warner. But before that, Dave, I want to actually recognize Jim Oliveira. You really do get to do cleanup. Jim Oliveira, Ward 1 counselor for here in New Bedford. Jim.
They really wanted to save the shortest guy to last. Look, I want to congratulate the Coalition, all those that have been affiliated with this project. I've watched it. I don't live very far from here. I've watched it and felt that it greatly complements the work that we're trying to accomplish in Ward 1 as well, here in New Bedford. I like to think of myself as the environmental counselor here in the North End, where we've been working to restore the Flora B. Pierce Trail. We're working on Turner's Pond restoration and opening that up, and also over at the 22 acres that nobody knows about behind Pulaski Park that belongs to us, as well as the Sassaquin Pond remediation that we continue to work on. And I think we've been doing that with Mark more recently as well, with some studies that have been accomplished. The work is tedious, it's long, it's a process just like this was, but we're going to continue to do this to give these great gifts back to children like my daughter. Thank you.
Okay, finishing up. So Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, Dave Warner, I think of all the people who are here today, Dave has been a champion for this project, making it a priority for the Acushnet Selectmen all the years of this project. I think when we started, we were in elementary school, I think. That's right. On this project. So with that, Dave Warner.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. The one thing I learned very early is if you want to be a good host, you never upstage your guests, so I'll keep it short. Welcome to Acushnet. It is very much located in Acushnet, but this really is the north end of New Bedford. To the mayor and the city of New Bedford for their outstanding cooperation. We couldn't have done it without you. And to the coalition, hats off to you. It's a great project. I urge everybody to be here. We're going to provide the public safety, make sure that people are safe here. And it's just a great, great project for families, not only now, but generations to come. So congratulations to all. Enjoy the trip. Enjoy the ride. Thank you very much.
All right, so let's open this place. So to do that, we're going to cut the ribbon so you can actually, guys, get across to the river. And to do that, I'm going to turn the program over. Look for the really tall guy with the white hair there, Brendan Annette, and Sarah Quintal in the red. Sarah and Brendan are going to get us open into this property. So to you guys.